Hello and welcome to Hindsighting, where we discuss all the movies to win the Best Picture Oscar and try to figure out if this picture truly is the best or is time rendered a different verdict. I'm Edward Clow, and my guest today is an Emmy Award-winning producer and director. He directed Baby Shark's big movie for Nickelodeon and Paramount Plus. Alan Foreman, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Ed. I'm excited to be here.
Excited to have you. Really excited to talk about today's movie and the year we're talking about. Also want to shout out our theme music, which was composed by Ronen Landa. As I mentioned last week, I hadn't mentioned it in the first 5 episodes, 6 episodes, whatever it had been, because I hadn't heard it yet. So sorry about that, Ronen, but his music's great, and that's what you've been hearing at the beginning and ending of all of these shows. Today, we're hindsighting the Best Picture of 2007, No Country for Old Men. From 8 nominations, it also won Oscars for Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Supporting Actor. It was nominated against Atonement, Juno, Michael Clayton, and There Will Be Blood. So, Alan, as all the other guests can attest, sort of the first season of this is the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And normally, I talk about why I think the 2000s was the worst decade that I've lived through.
Okay.
Which isn't to say there's
just on a personal level or from an artistic perspective. The worst decade.
Yeah, I think an artistic level. I don't think there. It's not to say that there's no good or even great movies in this decade. I think this thesis that I'm not trying to sort of prove to people. I'm just sort of interrogating it. A lot of guests have said, "Ed, you're nuts." Some people have agreed. Some people have been in the middle. But I think other guests have sort of added to the stew of this. And I think the thrust of my argument, I'm going to try and bang through it because if you've been listening to every episode of this, you're tired of me fucking talking about this. But I do think it's important. I just think that it was definitely not as good as the 90s, which came before it. And I don't think it was as good as the 2010s, which came after it. And I think there are a lot of reasons for it. I think, not to be political, 9/11 is a factor. I think there's an institutional resistance to doing anything, that might upset people after a national tragedy. I think that prestige TV is really starting to cook here. So I think a lot of good writers and even some good actors are moving to television. Television is becoming a real disruptive force. We're only a year away from Breaking Bad when we're talking about this year that we're talking about, and Mad Men's starting. And I mean, we're not going to make this about TV, but there's just a lot of TV going on. What's interesting is today's movie was made by co-made by a company called Paramount Vantage, which was, sort of an indie arm to a major studio. And that's a bit of the paradox that I've discovered while working through this, is that there were really cool sort of companies like that. There were like big studios that had like these little sort of indie-ish labels. And that's amazing. And we need that now. But for the most part, I just wasn't vibing with the movies that they were making. So it's like the infrastructure was there. There was still an independent film scene. But for me, I don't know, the movies just weren't that great. So let me ask you this. What do you think of the 2000s as a decade? You think I'm right, wrong, somewhere in between?
It was kind of a weird time in my personal life because I wasn't really consuming a ton of media. I was fresh out of college and I was living in Boston and I was working my first jobs in animation. I didn't have a TV, so I wasn't really aware of the burgeoning television scene. I mean, I knew about things like The Sopranos, and I had heard of Mad Men because my mother was a big fan. So I wasn't really consuming those things. And as far as movies went at that time, I was so caught up in, sort of trying to build my life as an artist. I wasn't really engaging a ton with cinema at the time. I feel like a lot of the movies, at least on the early 2000s, I totally missed. But in the later 2000s, I think I was starting to engage more. So for example, with the year that we're looking at, I think I've seen all but one of the Best Picture noms.
Me too, actually.
Like, I didn't see Atonement.
I didn't see Atonement either. That's so funny.
So I can't really speak to that. Well,
yeah, that's fine.
But I would say like that at that point in time, I would say from maybe 2006 through to the end of that decade, I started to engage more with media.
Yeah, it's interesting because this argument, my argument, is strongest in like around 2003, and I
Mm.
talked a lot about that in the Lord of the Rings episode I did with Dave Sipkin. But the second half of this decade shows a lot of life. I was talking to my wife, and she said like, "Oh, what's coming up?" And I said like, "Oh, I got The Departed, and No
Mhm.
Country for Old Men, and Slumdog, and Hurt Locker." She's like, "Those are good movies."
Those are
I'm
good
like,
movies.
"Yeah, these are good movies." I think this decade in the second half starts to show some signs of life, and I think that my argument is weakest in the year that we're talking about today, 2007. I think
Yeah.
it's not a close race. If you were to look at the entire 2000s, this is the strongest year. A lot of the movies we're going to be discussing, a lot of movies we're going to be discussing today, I think are very strong. We'll get into the Best Picture nominees when we get to that part
Right.
of the show. But what's interesting, and this is something I guess I'm sort of pushing back on my own theory. Here's just a few movies that came out in 2007 that weren't nominated for
Mhm.
major awards.
Mhm.
There might have been one or two, there might have been one or two nominations in here, but here are just a couple movies that aren't in the thrust of Best Picture nominees that came out: Zodiac,
Mhm.
Hot Fuzz, Hot Rod,
Mhm.
Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, The Mist, Charlie Wilson's War. Now, these aren't the only movies we're going to be discussing, but I
Right.
just when I prepare an episode, I look at the wiki of everything that came out that year,
I
just to
did the
kind of
same thing because
yeah,
I was curious, what else. I think there's a lot to be said for your argument about the sort of early 2000s malaise,
yeah,
especially the cultural shock of 9/11.
yeah,
But 2007, a lot of good movies. The others that I wrote down that I thought were phenomenal movies: American Gangster, The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford, Sunshine, which is one of my favorite sci-fi movies of all time. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. A lot of good
yeah,
stuff that year.
yeah. So you drew a high card by I gave you the choice of what movie to do,
Yeah,
and I think you chose this one.
I did.
All right, let's move on to No Country for Old Men. But first, some stats. This was the second film in history to share the Academy Award for Best Director between two directors. The first was between Jerome Robbins and Robert Wise for West Side Story back in 1961. Now, the reason I didn't know this, Alan, the reason why this is so rare is because the Academy normally has strict rules against nominating more than one person per film and director,
Mm.
um, in order to prevent actors and producers from claiming directorial credits. The Academy can make an exception when the co-directors are an established duo, like the
Okay.
Coens. This happened recently in 2022 when Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinhardt won Best
The
Directors.
Daniels, yeah,
Yes,
right.
for
I didn't
everything,
know
everywhere,
about
all at
this rule.
once.
I didn't know about this rule.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and it's
Okay.
interesting because when sticking with the Coens, the last time the Coens were nominated for Best Director, it was actually just Joel, because on their credits, it would be directed by Joel Cohen,
Right.
produced by Ethan,
Right.
but they've always co-directed. So there was even a rule about co-directors being credited. I don't know on what movie it switched. Maybe it was Lebowski. I don't have that at my
Was
fingertips.
that for Fargo?
For Fargo, they were nominated for
Okay.
Best Director, but only
But
Joel was
only Joel.
credited,
Right.
which might, I mean, we'll do that episode when we get to 1996, but which might have played into why they didn't win Best Director, but they
Hmm.
did win Best Screenplay for that.
Right.
I mean, so they were not credited even together. It was Joel was the director, but everybody has said that their roles never changed, just a credit thing.
Right.
So that's an interesting thing.
Interesting.
So this is one of three Best Picture winners that are produced, directed, written, and edited by the same person, or in this case, two people. The first is James Cameron for Titanic, and this happened just this year with Sean Baker for Honora.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Javier Bardem's victory made him the first Spanish actor to win an Oscar. He was also the first Spanish actor to be nominated when he was nominated for a movie called Before Night Falls back in 2000. Interesting thing, this year, all four actors were all from Europe. There were no Americans. So Daniel Day-Lewis wins, Javier Bardem
Right.
wins, Marion Cotillard wins, and Tilda Swinton wins. So it's four actors from Europe. I don't know if that's never happened again, but there wasn't a single American, and they were all from a different country in Europe.
Love it. I
Yeah,
love that.
kind of cool. This was the first Best Picture to be edited using Final Cut Pro.
Wow.
Yeah.
First digital edit. Oh,
The
that seems
first digital edit to win.
okay. All right. To
Yes.
win the award.
To
All
win
right.
the award. But I think to use Final Cut Pro because Avid had been around for what, like since the mid 90s?
Yeah,
What
about
was
that because I learned on Avid in film school, and it was relatively new.
Mhm. At 2 hours and 2 minutes, this is number 36 in ascending length. Number
Mm.
37, if you count the movie Sunrise, which we'll have to litigate in another episode if that counts. It is
Mhm.
number 31 on the box office list of Best Picture winners with a worldwide gross of 171 million. So, what was your previous
Mm.
relationship to this movie? Do you remember the first time you saw it? What the circumstances were?
I do. I was at the time I was dating a girl who is from Los Angeles,
Mm.
and her family lives in a very prestigious zip code, the 90210.
Oh, really?
And we were out here visiting her family, and it had just come out, and such a big Coen Brothers fan, and I was
Yeah.
very excited about this film, so we went to go see it at a movie theater in Beverly Hills. I don't remember which theater it was.
Might not be around anymore.
It might not be around anymore. Um, but I remember just being completely floored by it. And, at the end, the thing that I found funniest about the whole experience, seeing it with this crowd, um, after Tommy Lee gives his soliloquy about the dream that he had, and it cuts to black, I remember being like totally moved by
Mhm.
it. And then like several people around me in the audience just saying, "What? That's it?" I was like, "Yeah, that's like really powerful and moving. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Do you not have souls?"
Well,
Um,
let's start there. Actually, that you know what? Let's start at the end
yeah.
because I think that that's such a big piece of this. So I remember um, being very jarred by that, but
Mhm.
watching it again today, I've seen this movie, you know, a few times. But what I remember about the first time I saw it is that I definitely was jarred by how abruptly it ended, but it really goes back like 3 or 4 scenes behind that because once
Mhm.
Josh Brolin is killed, it's interesting because I had a similar reaction, I guess, to sort of the plebeians that you saw it with. I didn't dislike it, but I was just like, "Well, wait, I don't understand." And, you know, I saw the movie again and did some reading about it, whatever the, internet, this was
Mhm.
whatever was going on the internet. Maybe it was AV Club or something. I think that might have been too early for that, but I definitely did some reading about it. And what was interesting is that, a lot of people thought, and maybe I did too, was that there was going to be some sort of showdown between Tommy Lee Jones and
Mhm.
Javier Bardem.
Right.
But like that would have lasted 10 seconds. Like we've seen Javier Bardem kill all kinds of people. Tommy Lee Jones is 60 years old, and by now the 60-year-old badass. The whole thing is like he's old and tired and world weary. So that part of it I didn't bump on because like
Mhm.
this sort of this what would that showdown be? It's not like
Right.
it's not like Bardem wouldn't have just
It
killed
wouldn't have
him.
added anything
It
to it. It
wouldn't have
would have.
added anything to it.
Mhm.
So but what's interesting, the movie is less abrupt in its ending than it seems at first blush because it really does. It's really breakneck and so taut pretty much until Brolin gets killed, and then
Right.
it's just like, okay, now what? And they're going for like this realism that I think they achieve. So, but what was interesting about this, not to branch off, a mutual friend of ours, he had said that when his dad saw this and There Will Be Blood, he said, "Am I ever gonna get an ending again?" And I get it. I
Mhm.
understand, but
Mhm.
I also I'm the last guy to say a movie needs to end conventionally. So yeah, I think yeah, I think the reaction that you experienced with other people was kind of typical. Um, but yeah, let
Well,
me go ahead.
I'll say this. I'm a big fan of non-resolution endings.
Mm,
And, being some and this is where I'm gonna get a little snobby for a minute.
please.
Um, having gone to film school and having studied films from around the world
Mm,
and a lot of like, very independent, very art house movies, I prefer that style personally
right,
to the Steven Spielberg tie it with a nice bow at the end kind of
right,
ending. Um, I prefer the Francois Truffaut freeze frame on the face on the beach at the end of 400 Blows.
right.
So for me, that this ending echoes that type of filmmaking, and it kind of like the way his character opens the movie with voiceover,
Mhm.
to me, kind of perfectly bookends his the themes that his character represents.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, he starts off by speaking, whimsically about, or with rose-colored glasses, about the old days and how things used to be in the world. And by the end of it, he's retired. He's even said multiple times throughout the course of the picture that he doesn't understand the world as it is now,
Right.
and that he has some sort of reveration for what the world used to be like, even though his cousin reminds him at the end, like, the world's always been a brutal and unforgiving place. And it always will be.
Right.
And when he's talking about the dream of his father, I think you can see in him, his performance is like so fucking good. I mean, the
Yeah.
performances across the board are
I
just
agree.
phenomenal.
Yeah. But let's talk about Tommy Lee Jones.
But
We're on
Tommy
there.
Lee, like, his performance is just like so nuanced,
Yeah.
and I couldn't think of anybody else in this role
He's perfectly
than
cast,
him.
and
Perfect.
without having his filmography in front of me,
Mm-hmm.
he's somebody who we kind of grew up with. He
Yeah.
was sort of like a B movie star, like he's
Yeah,
kind of like a B
yeah.
like tough guy.
Yeah.
And then he gets this incredible role in JFK
Yeah.
that he apparently campaiged really hard to get, where he
I
plays.
didn't know that.
Yeah, and he gets his
He's
first Oscar.
fantastic in it.
Yeah, he gets his first Oscar nomination. He's the only
Mhm.
actor from that incredible cast who's nominated. 2 years later, he does The Fugitive. He wins the Oscar.
Right.
He becomes kind of a bankable movie star. He does Men in Black and some of these other things.
Under Siege.
Under Siege. Well, Under Siege is in between.
It was in between.
It was in between JFK and
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but he's like, Under Siege is the best Steven Seagal movie, and he's like 85% of the reason why.
Mhm,
Because it's got like a good villain. And Andrew
Good villain
Davis
goes a long way. Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, and Andrew Davis, who directed Under Siege, directs The Fugitive the very next year.
Right.
And he'd worked
That's
with him in a
right.
movie called The Package with Gene Hackman a few years earlier.
Right.
So, but he's like a lot of actors that we've talked about already on the show who are so good, but then they do a lot of Hollywood stuff. They're in like everything. They're kind of spread too thin. I don't know where he was in his career. I know the very same year he does a really interesting movie called In the Valley of Allah, where he's nominated for Best Actor.
I did not see that one. No.
Yeah, it's Paul Haggis who directed Crash. It's a
sure.
pretty
Yeah.
interesting movie. He's fantastic in that. I think, he's not nominated for this, but he is nominated for Best Actor for that. So it's like a real good year for him. Like 07, he's like in two, he's in like two sort of like high profile movies. But yeah, I mean, you say, oh, Tommy Lee Jones is going to be like this cop in Texas.
Right.
He'll be like this badass, and he'll be like talking fast and stuff, and
Yeah.
he's just like leans into his old age and just but yeah, he's so great, and yeah, I mean, yeah, the performances in all the way across. I mean, I'm jumping around a bit, but yeah, I think that what's interesting watching this movie, the first time I saw it, I was 29, and I watched it today, and I'm 47. And I think it resonates for me in a different way.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because this idea that every generation thinks that the world is fucked because of the generation that's coming up behind them. And this is called out in that movie. Is that guy his cousin in the wheelchair?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't realize they were related. I thought he just knew his
Yeah.
grand. Okay.
Yeah.
That guy's great too. Actor named Barry Corbin,
Great.
who goes back to
I
like
love
War
him.
Games.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah. And you've read this book, right?
I have, yes.
Okay, so I want to talk about this. It's interesting. It's just so funny how the show's like been kind of laying out.
Quite far after the fact, I read the book.
I did too. This is actually perfect. So when the movie came out, my friend Eric Garcia, who's going to be a guest 2 episodes from now, he's going to do Hurt Locker with me. He had said to me, I think he even loaned me the book. This is pre-digital. He actually handed me a copy of the book, and he said, "I want you to read this." And he said, he was a big fan of this movie. He said, I feel like they took the book and just opened it in final draft. And what was interesting, and I read the book probably like, let's say it was like early 2008. So the movie had been out, maybe the Oscars had already happened. That doesn't matter. What was interesting, and I'm curious what your memory is, and then I have like a larger question that I'm asking for the second time on this show. My memory of it is that all the stories that the Ed Tom character, the Tommy Lee Jones character, tells anecdotally is like sort of opens every chapter. It's almost like VO of every chapter, like the movie
Right.
opens.
Yeah.
Because so he's like sort of like floating through the story of the book more, and he's in the movie a little bit more. And I remember, this might not be fair because I read the book was like 17 years ago
Mm.
now, almost 18. I remember sort of agreeing with my friend's assessment, but here's I guess I have two questions. One, is that your memory of the book, if any? And two, I talked a lot about this with Lord of the Rings. Now, I had never read Lord of the Rings,
Mm.
but Dave Sipkin, who was my guest, had read the books. And what I had said in the case of Lord of the Rings was the things I liked, are they just things from the book? And is that okay? Is Peter Jackson or the Coens or Robert Rodriguez in Sin City, which was like literally like panel for
Yeah.
panel. I mean,
Yeah.
he was very proud of the fact that like he's like, I am transposing this, I'm not
Mhm.
adapting it. Frank Miller's directing it with me. We're
Which I thought
copying.
was a very cool exercise.
Very cool
Yeah.
exercise. I don't think this is that. What do you remember about the book, and do you think this assessment is fair? I'm not trying to push this like my other thing. Do you remember the book?
I do. I read it not a year after, but like several years
Okay, so more recently
after
than me.
seeing the movie. But I remember reading No Country and feeling, wow, I can't believe it's such a faithful adaptation of the book. Yeah, there are some little moments that don't make it into the screen version,
Mhm.
but to me, it didn't really make a huge difference.
Yeah, and what's interesting, I don't want to make this too much about the book because
Mm.
we are talking about the movie. I
Right.
mean, I'm of maybe not even two minds of it. I think it's okay if a filmmaker wants to do that because I think the way the Coen brothers obviously shot and staged this, that wasn't in the book. I mean, this is obviously a very well shot, very well staged
Yes.
movie. But I also think, I mean, I have my notes here. I wrote down so many lines of dialogue that I loved, and I can't imagine those are all in the book because the Coens are what they're so good at. What left out of me about this movie, and this is true of most of their movies, is every role, no matter how small, is really well written,
Mhm.
and the actors they get, most of whom I've never seen before or since. Every small role in this, most of these actors, I'm talking about like the kids on the bridge and like the
Mhm.
kids on the bicycle and like the store owner and like, you know, they're all so great and they're all given like a great line of dialogue. And I didn't remember. It's funny because what I remember about this movie when I think of it is, Javier Bardem
Mhm.
just killing people with his air gun thing and the coin toss scene, and Josh Brolin swimming through the lake
Mhm.
and stuff. Like, I mean, there's these images you just think of, but I just didn't remember how much great dialogue there is in this movie. And
Yeah.
I always forget like how fucking funny this movie is.
Yeah.
Because the Coens are interesting to me because it's like, I think sometimes their movies are a little too crazy, as much as I admire them, and sometimes they sort of crumble under the weight of their own pretentiousness. And I feel like for me, my favorite Coen Brothers movies, Lebowski, Fargo, and this one we're discussing now, which isn't to say those are the only three good ones, but and I don't have them all ranked. I mean, I do have other directors' works ranked.
Sure.
I just haven't seen all of them yet.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Buster Scruggs, and I haven't seen. That might be the only one I haven't
I think
seen.
Buster Scruggs and Hail Caesar.
I saw Hail Caesar. Hail Caesar's fun, but
Mhm.
what the Coens are so great at is, you know, Fargo and No Country
Mhm.
are really prime examples of this because they're movies that are, you know, they're very funny in this dry way, but when the violence is going on, it's as taut as. And this movie is so taut and
Yeah.
so breakneck and so like the thing I wrote down about this movie, and I think this plays into the ending, which I'm going to kind of try and tie this all together, is I think why people in your audience back in '07 were like, what? I think they really were enthralled by the movie up to that point. And I think that when it didn't have this conclusion that was as taut as the movie they saw for like, an hour and 45 minutes up to that point, I think that was the letdown. I mean, I can't speak for people that I don't know,
Right.
but because it is like these three people, it's Brolin outrunning Javier Bardem and Javier Bardem chasing him. And then Tommy Lee Jones is trying to wrap his brain around this. And, so it's like these three very smart characters trying to who never share a scene together. I mean, that's the thing that's fascinating about this
Mhm.
is that these three guys never share a scene. I think that also plays into people's sort of disappointment because I think they thought, oh, because all three of these guys' names are above the title,
Well, at the very least, the white hat and the black hat,
right,
where's their showdown?
right. It doesn't happen.
Which is how life happens.
Exactly. Right.
But in the Coen Brothers oeuvre, I would say, I feel like most of the movies they did before this had more sort of quirkiness and irreverence.
This is not quirky. This is very
There
dry.
There is some humor.
Right. It's not
But
quirky.
even Fargo is wackier
I agree.
and sillier than this.
This-
Even though they both have like brutal violence,
But not as brutal
but
as this.
not as brutal as this. This
Yeah.
was the most brutal and the most serious, if you could.
Yeah, I think
that
they've made.
label
Yeah,
on it.
I think that's why. Yeah, I don't think. I think the humor in this is very. It's very sort of gallows. It's very
Mhm,
sort of
mhm.
dry. It's very easy to miss. There isn't. The only imitable character in this is Javier Bardem, but even he, people will say, call it friendo, but that's
Right.
it. He says
Right.
so little in this movie. I mean, well, I don't know. Sometimes I think he doesn't say a lot. Sometimes I think he says more than maybe the Brolin character does.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just so taut and what's interesting is that the knock. This isn't my problem, but every great director or directors have a knock against them. Like for Fincher, it's that his movies are these cold intellectual exercises and they don't have heart. This isn't me speaking. I'm just saying this is the thing.
Right. Yeah.
And Nolan is only interested in the contraption, not the humanity. I don't agree with that, but on and on. I think with the Coens, the knock on them sometimes is, and Fargo is a great example. Fargo and Raising Arizona, just to take two examples, it's these worlds they're depicting. Are they making fun of these people or do they have
Mhm.
genuine affection for them?
Mhm.
Raising Arizona, it's a lot of rednecks and
Yeah.
trailer parks, and Fargo, it's a lot of people who, people would do. We remember when Fargo came out, people started talking like they were
Sure,
from
yeah.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
And are they celebrating these people? Are they making fun of them? And that thought popped in my mind here because I really feel like they're celebrating these people from West Texas because everybody in this movie, seems kind of smart or at least
Mhm.
street smart, nobody does anything, that's why would that person do that?
Right. There's no big caricaturing of
Yeah.
that people of that region.
Yeah, the Brolin character's really smart.
Mhm.
He does everything a smart person would do, and you see him figure stuff out. He does he makes mistakes, but
No, but he's capable.
he's
And
capable.
He's capable and he's intelligent.
Right. And so he's a worthy adversary.
Even if he made a boneheaded decision that
Right.
kick this whole thing off.
Exactly. But I think the best thing about this movie is the process. There's
Mhm.
so much process. This is the process of Brolin getting the money and then going back, and there's the process of him hiding the money in the vent, and then it's Harvey Bardem, the process of him he gets shot and him just
Mhm.
dealing with that. And I just
Yep.
think that that's where this movie really, really sings for me. Is just they just show
Well,
you.
yeah, one of the words I wrote down as I was just sort of free associating words as I was watching it again the other day is deliberate.
Mhm.
Everything is very deliberate.
Yeah.
Every character makes deliberate choices.
Yeah.
They move deliberately.
Yeah.
Everything they do is sort of guided by some sort of, I don't know. Well, for Javier Bardem's character, guided by fate. And for Brolin is sort of risk.
Right.
And for Tommy Lee, it's confusion and wanting to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And wanting to help this guy, save him from this guy.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's another part that might frustrate people is that Tommy Lee Jones doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't stop Javier Bardem. He doesn't protect Josh Brolin. He's
Mhm.
5 minutes late.
Yeah. He's
But
just
let's say he'd been there
too
5
late.
minutes earlier, he probably would have gotten killed. It was a bunch of dudes with machine guns.
Maybe, who knows though? I mean, that's also part of the point of the movie, right?
Right.
Is you never know what this whole like reliance on fate and destiny
Right.
that Shiger clings to is a false truth,
Mm.
which I find fascinating too.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wrote down, so just to point out one day player
Mm-hmm.
that I thought was fantastic was the manager at the trailer
Oh,
park.
I love her so much.
That woman who, I don't know if she was just like a local non-actor. This is like where the Coens, again, this movie's is just so great at just finding these people. And I think I have a question about that scene. It's not
Mhm.
like a plot thing. I
Mhm.
just, she gives him so much shit, and we definitively know he does not kill her. Why doesn't he kill her? Because I wrote down, like, is he like respect? Like, this lady's got balls, or like, because there's a couple times where like we don't see him kill someone,
Right.
like the dude in the office, he kills Stephen Root,
Right.
and he's like,
But
"Are you gonna hurt me?" He's like,
we don't know if he kills
"We don't know
this
if he
guy or
kills
not.
that guy.
No.
It doesn't really matter."
Doesn't. Yeah.
Like, as the movie goes on, it starts to get very vague about, like, we know he's killing people left and right, but we're not
He
seeing
didn't kill the cat, which is most important to me. He didn't kill the cat.
Save the cat. Even the Coens like save the cat. You can't
Save
get
the
away from
cat.
save the cat.
Yeah.
But I just thought, like, and obviously the guy in the coin toss scene, the guy in the gas station.
Well, the thing I love about the gal who plays the manager of the trailer park, the last expression she gives him,
Mhm.
it's a nonverbal. She doesn't have a line there.
Mm.
After she repeats to him that she is not at liberty to give out any information about people who live there.
Right.
I think Shiger asks one more time, and she literally just does a shift in her chair, and that sort of like that little head tilt of like
Yeah.
a mother scolding a kid, like,
Yeah.
I told you once, I told you twice, I'm
Yeah.
not telling you again.
Yeah.
And that to me is like she's fantastic. That was when an actor has that much control over their physicality.
Yeah.
It's those little touches that I love, 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 love.
Yeah. And this movie's filled with that. And I guess most of their movies are. I mean,
Oh, they have such a deft hand at getting these types of day players to play these small parts.
yeah,
that
like in
just
The Big
add
Lebowski.
reality and color to everything.
Exactly. In The Big Lebowski, it's not like a part people quote a lot, but when they go to the funeral parlor and the
Mhm.
guy, it's like, "It is our most modestly priced receptacle."
Yeah.
Like, that guy's just fantastic, and it's
Yeah.
like, it's probably in all their movies. Like, I
Mhm.
don't, even the movies that don't work for me, the cinematography and the casting and all that stuff is still meticulous. I
Yeah.
just think sometimes when they miss, it's just like, okay, I'm just not along for this ride. But they're
Mhm.
they're master filmmakers, and this is obviously, they win 3 Academy Awards for this movie to go along with the one they won 11 years earlier for
Right,
Fargo.
right.
So like this stratifies them to, and what's crazy is that, like, they make a movie a year. After this, they do Burn After Reading.
Mhm.
A year after that, they do Serious Man. Then they
Mhm.
do True Grit. It's
Right.
like bing, bang, boom. That's 4 movies in 3 years.
Great movies, all of them too.
Yeah. They have like this Woody Allen like output or even
Mhm.
Eastwood, where it's like a movie a year, and it's just crazy after 3 years off, which isn't that long. It's seeming a lot less long as time goes by.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's and I think this was, up to this point, their highest grossing movie. I know True Grit makes way more money,
Okay.
but I think True Grit is a little bit drafting off this. I mean, True Grit's an actual Western, and
Right,
True Grit's
right.
a much more
It's a more traditional Western.
more traditional
It's- yeah.
Western, more 4 quadrant, and it's a good movie, but I think that they're definitely,
And also taking advantage of the cast
yes,
at that stage in time, like
absolutely.
Jeff Bridges, Matt Damon,
Yeah.
even Josh Brolin,
Brolin
whose
again.
star rose heftily off the back of No Country.
Yeah,
I mean, he
let's talk about Brolin,
Yeah.
because Brolin it was interesting, and I'm sure if you didn't make this, I'm sure you had a similar experience. So Brolin's somebody that we grew up with because he was in the Goonies,
Right.
and I didn't. I mean,
But like, I did not really clock him that much after that, like
no. Well, I don't clock. So you know what? The first thing I saw him in
yeah.
that I remember, he's in a David O. Russell movie called Flirting with Disaster.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Okay.
It's Ben Stiller,
Yeah.
Patricia
Oh,
Arquette.
yes. Okay, I did see that.
Yes.
I always
That was like I remember when
Yeah.
I saw that movie, which is 1996.
Mhm.
So he's like, so it's just a little, it's like a little bit more than 10 years before this. So he's
Right.
probably like not even 30 yet. It's sort of I don't know if it's a forgotten David O. Russell movie, but it's like one of his better ones. But then again, I lose track of him. And then in '07, before this movie, he's in what was it? Planet Terror, the Robert Rodriguez movie,
Right.
which was a
I was trying to
grindhouse.
think of that. I was like, I know he was in something around the same
Yeah, it was
time
earlier this year, and I remember seeing
that I
him,
remember him from.
a-
Right.
and and I remember thinking like, wow, he's kind of like got like a Nolte thing now,
Hmm.
and he actually does a really great Nolte impression. If you heard his Mark Maron interview,
I'm
Brolin,
sure I saw. I'm sure I listened to the
yeah,
Marin
but he
interview.
kind of was like, because he's about 40 here, 39 or
Yeah.
40, and
Yeah.
he's like, oh, he's kind of like a youngish Nolte. And then
Mm.
I remember A.O. Scott, the New York Times film critic, he was subbing because Ebert was, he unfortunately had his
Right.
jaw removed. So A.O. Scott was subbing on Richard Roper's show. And I think in his review of American Gangster, which comes out, I think, a week before or after
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
he says, this is the second movie in a week where Josh Brolin shoots a dog.
That's right. I forgot he does that in the
Josh
movie.
Brolin shot a dog.
I mean, but like, what a year for Josh Brolin, though.
yeah,
I mean,
to be in this
be in,
and
like-
then to be in a Ridley Scott movie, a
Right.
very, which made more money than
just
this.
a great movie too. Like, talk about like
Yeah.
2007 movies.
Yeah.
And then the next year he's in W, and so like his
And Milk, he's nominated for an
Milk,
Oscar.
right.
And yeah, I mean, he's pretty much
so like
been
he
a s-
blows up.
Yeah,
right
and
around there.
he's like one of these guys, like and he's still working, like,
Mhm.
he's like one of these like middle-aged dudes who's like sometimes the lead, sometimes not.
Yeah.
He's definitely like just got one of those. I just keep comparing him to Nolte because I feel like, he's talked about his connection to Nolte a little bit, but he has like that kind of like, it's funny because it's like, in some ways he's a Nepo baby because his dad is a very
Right.
famous actor, but I didn't know who the fuck James Brolin was. I know now. So to me,
I always loved James Brolin.
I just didn't know.
I
I
always
know who
loved
he
him,
is
yeah.
subsequently.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like I didn't know who Kirk Douglas was.
Right.
So like Michael Douglas was like a clean slate for me.
Mhm.
And Michael Douglas is another actor. I'll just compare them with sort of the Nepo baby part of it, where it's like, despite the fact that they're from Hollywood families, both those dudes have like an authenticity.
Yeah.
And Jeff Bridges has that too.
For
another
sure.
guy who's
Another
the
guy.
dad of a famous
Right.
actor, son of a famous actor. So, I mean, I don't want to make this podcast about that, but yeah, this movie, despite the fact that he isn't even nominated for an Academy Award, this puts Brolin,
It puts him in a different tier.
Yeah.
And like I remember hearing him talk about it at the time that he had lived in West Texas and understood the land and understood the people and felt
Yeah.
like this was the perfect role for him. And he was so naturalistic.
Yeah. The accent was. I believe
accent
Tommy Lee
was
Jones is
great.
from Texas also.
Tommy Lee Jones also from Texas.
Yeah, but he's still doing a sort of a specific accent. Like he's
Mhm.
not talking like Tommy Lee Jones. I mean, I
Right.
guess Tommy Lee Jones's normal voice does have Texas in it,
A
but
little
he's doing.
lilt. He's got a little lilt naturally. Yeah.
I mean, like there's a line. I'll do a terrible impression
Sure.
where he's like, it's like, you stop hearing the ma'ams and sirs, the rest is soon to follow.
Right, yeah.
Like just the vernacular in this movie is so fantastic, and I literally just wrote down dialogue. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not going to read it all, but like, I mean, there's just so many. It's not just that the dialogue is funny and clever. It's just so like there's a line I love. I'm just jumping around here. I mean, Woody Harrelson's in like 3 or 4 scenes in this movie, but his first scene where Stephen Root, another
Mhm.
fantastic
I know.
actor,
Great.
where
Love him.
he's like, what do you know about Sugar? And Woody Harrelson's just like, he's a psychopathic killer, but so what?
Yeah.
There's plenty of them.
Yeah, no
I just
big
love
deal.
it. Like in the world of this movie,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, this dude's a psycho, but like, you get the impression Woody Harrelson's some sort of killer himself or a hitman or
Oh,
some
yeah.
sort of like handler.
My favorite line of his is in the hospital scene
Mm.
when
Yeah.
he, Brolin asks him to describe Sugar, and he says, "I would say he doesn't have a sense of humor."
Yeah.
Great
Yeah.
line.
This is what I think is like, I can't imagine not having, I mean, we're not going to read from the book in our hymnals and but I can't imagine all this stuff was in the book. And I think the Coens are so in the movies we're talking about, like Fargo and Lebowski and I mean, even again, some of the movies that don't work, they still are just so, I mean, they're just masterful at taking these people and giving them a singular voice. And that's what makes this movie really, really. I mean, we're talking about people who are in like one scene, like the guy in the sports shop where Brolin says like, "I don't imagine you see too many guys walking in here without any clothes on." It's like, no, sir, it's unusual.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
Garrett
yeah.
Dillahunt is fantastic in this. You know, like that's such a nothing part, but he just has so many. I mean, I wouldn't call that guy a dumb character, but he
Mm-mm.
is a little like sort of naive. And I thought about this thing that I heard in an interview. I forgot where I heard it, some other podcast where I think Hank Azaria was on. And he was talking about how on The Simpsons the writers hate to write Ralphie because it's so hard because it's like writing poetry.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
Ralphie, and I don't think Garrett Dillahunt is as dumb as Ralphie, but like there's like a poetry to like the way that that guy sees things, and he's not stupid, but he is just like naive. It's just like the
Mhm.
way he's like, well, that's very linear, Sheriff. You know, like
I love his character, and
yeah,
that line in particular was one of my favorite lines. And
yeah. I mean, there's just so. I mean, of the what is this the eighth movie
Mhm.
that I've covered so far. I don't think I've written this much dialogue down. Like there, I mean, there's another line. I hate to just shout
No,
lines
go
out from
for
this
it.
movie, but where Dillahunt says like, "Well, it's a mess, Sheriff," and then he's like, "If not, it'll do till the mess gets here."
Yeah.
You know,
Great line.
it's
Great
just. But
line.
even like little things were like, I talked about the vernacular a second ago, where they're in the diner. I think there's like two scenes where Tommy Lee Jones is like having dinner or breakfast, and Dylan is talking to him, and he tells him something, something messed up, and then the waitress comes over, and she's like, "Do you need me to fill you up, Ed Thompson? I think you better had." Like there's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
I mean, I think you better had is just so specific to. I've never been to West Texas,
Well, it's
but
specific to that vernacular.
right,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just it's like Fargo, because like when we saw Fargo, we were going like, "Oh yeah, don't you know?"
Yeah.
And like everyone doing that
Yeah.
terrible accent, but again, it's like they really do. Yeah, I mean the sense of place in this movie is really fantastic. Like the one thing I didn't
Well, I
write this
mean, it's
down, but
it's a
like
character in the
yeah,
film.
yeah, they really two guys from Minnesota who like didn't grow up there. I mean, maybe I'd have to think if they shot another movie there. It's possible they had. I just can't think of one. But a detail that I love, it's so small, but I know it's not an accident. The first hotel that Brolin's in, and he peeks through the window and he sees the marquee and then it says free HBO.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
remember in Florida where we're from, I remember that being a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Free
Huge.
HBO.
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah. And I just and I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess they did have HBO in 1980."
Yeah,
Because
I clocked that detail too when I was rewatching the other day.
obviously
Oh
they
yeah, the
put that
free
up.
HBO. Yeah.
I mean, it's like there's nothing
Yeah.
I mean, with any great filmmaker, with like the Coens or Tarantino or Scorsese, like anything like that, it's not an accident.
Oh no, that's specific.
There's this, it's beautifully photographed by
Oh my
Roger
God,
Deakins,
gorgeous.
who I'm
Those
happy to say, since this has won 2 Academy Awards,
those
very close together.
first few landscape shots
Yeah.
are just so insanely beautiful.
Yeah, and I think the opening of the movie, you made a good point a while ago, which I guess I should have said this back then, but
I'll take it. I'll take the kudos at any moment.
no, but I think the beginning of this movie, how we're seeing these incredible shots, and Tommy Lee Jones is talking about, how he arrested this kid who killed a 14-year-old girl, and he said, "If you let me out, I'll do it again. I know I'm going to hell. I'll be there in about 15 minutes." I think if you look at the bookend thing, it does, the end of this movie isn't lazy, and I think that that's what some people. That's the knee jerk. It's like, "Oh,
Maybe
this is
the
lazy."
misinterpretation is
It's a
like, oh, we're just gonna
misinterpretation.
cut this off because we don't know what to do.
I don't find the end of No Country for Old Men lazy because I think it's set up. If you're really watching the movie,
Hmm.
you know, the beginning and the end, I always think a lot about like what's the first image, what's the last image. Like what's the
Right.
first thing we're seeing,
Right.
what's the last thing we're seeing. That's something I think about a lot. Whether I'm writing something or watching something. And I think if you look at how this movie ends and how this movie begins, there's a totality there.
Yeah.
I mean, they are definitely. I'll take some more of that.
Yeah. Let's get a little refill. Here
Yes, a
real
little
quick.
refill. We're refilling on wine right now.
I never leave home without it.
Yeah.
It's
It's not irresponsible to podcast while drinking because we're not air traffic controllers.
That's right.
He said to his wife
Yet.
before the pod defensively.
Yet.
Mm,
Your country needs you, Ed.
my country needs me. But I watched the movie. I might have watched this a second time in the theater
Mm.
after having read the book. I think I read the book and then I saw the movie a second time with someone who hadn't seen it yet. And seeing it on the big screen the second time, knowing where it was going, I was a little bit more open to it. And I'm very hard on things that
Mm,
are ambiguity is interesting because ambiguity, there's two types of ambiguity. There's two types of ambiguity, like what happens and what does it mean? You
mhm,
know what I'm saying? Like,
mhm.
I don't like the ambiguity as far as like, oh, what happens? I think the fact that we're seeing a movie like this winning the Best Picture Oscar is speaking a little bit to the cultural moment. You know, we're very close to the end of the Bush presidency.
Mhm,
And I don't want to
mhm.
get too into the weeds of
Sure.
politics,
Yeah.
but I do think there was a world weariness that made this movie resonate. You know, because movie makes it makes over $100 million worldwide. It makes 70
Mhm.
million domestically.
Yeah.
That's I mean, up to that until True Grit, that's their biggest hit.
Well, I think it this might be a point where and I don't know if I'm getting ahead of things, where I might want to talk about this movie in relation to There Will Be Blood.
I think it's okay because I think, interestingly, they were both shot in the exact same place at the exact same time. I think at one
Yeah.
point,
Oh, that's right. There was a smoke from one of the
yeah,
that they had to wait till it cleared
I think
out.
the No Country crew had to wait till There Will Be Blood,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think it's the
Right.
same studio. It's the
Mhm.
old so this is Miramax, but it's not Harvey
Right. Right,
Weinstein.
right, right.
So Harvey Weinstein, thankfully, is not part of this Oscar conversation because he's starting his own company, which has which they'll be back with a vengeance.
Right.
Um, but so this is the Miramax sans the Weinsteins and Paramount Vantage, and I believe the same people did There Will Be Blood, which comes out like a month or two later.
Yeah. Well, I think there are some interesting parallels between those two pictures,
I do
right?
too.
I mean, obviously the setting is one of them. Like the setting plays a huge role in each picture. The
Right.
lo-
Dusty.
the nature, because the nature is unforgiving. It's unforgiving, and it's a survivalist landscape. Everything that exists in these sort of barren, sun-baked places is fighting for its life.
Yeah,
And in a
interesting.
lot of ways, that mirrors what our characters in both of these pictures are doing. Um, but and they both have brutality.
Yeah.
But I feel like what No Country does that maybe There Will Be Blood doesn't do is that it sort of, I feel like the themes of the brutality are tied more to themes that are universal
In this movie.
in No Country
Yeah.
versus There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's interesting because these two movies were sort of in conversation with each other. They came out very close together, so they were playing in theaters at the same time. You know, I try not to go too much into the politics of the Oscars.
Sure.
We will,
Yeah.
but
I
I
know.
do
I mean,
think it
it's a
was
thing.
going into Oscar night. It felt like it was either going to be No Country or There Will Be Blood was going to take the top prize. I think
It
most people would have been okay either
either
way.
way, it did sort of feel like, and I hate to again the politics of the Oscars and the politics of any awards,
Mm,
but it did sort of feel a little bit like, well, it's the Coen brothers' time. It's not your time yet, PTA.
right,
Your time will come,
right,
and it's probably going to come with one battle after another. But
right.
it did sort of feel like you're not quite there yet, bro.
Well, No Country. I'm sorry. Well, There Will Be Blood was. I mean, PTA hadn't made a movie in 5 years. The movie he made right before. Well, not right before. The previous movie was Punch Drunk Love,
Right.
which is a movie that's pretty well liked, but it might be the most obscure movie other than Hard Eight of his 9
Yeah,
movies. I guess
agreed.
10 movies now.
Yeah.
So There Will Be Blood. When it came out, it was like, oh wait, he's working with DDL, and like, wait, what is this movie?
Well,
It's
and
got
it was
nothing.
quite a departure from his previous pictures too.
Exactly.
Like,
It was like, and it was interesting is that this same year, Fincher does Zodiac, which on
mhm,
paper seems like a movie he would make. It's about a serial
yeah,
killer, but just that's a huge shift change for him, just in terms
right.
of like he's shooting digitally, he's making an historical sort of epic.
Oh, and stylistically,
Yeah.
it's a shift for
Yeah.
him too.
And we see it also I mean, just 2 years later, this huge shift in Tarantino's career, you
Yeah.
know? So I feel like there's like this huge sea change going on. So PTA's was like almost whiplash inducing,
Right.
whereas like the Coen brothers, it was like if you look at Blood Simple and
Sure.
you look at the movie we're talking about now, it's like, okay,
You couldn't understand that journey,
yeah.
that sort of
And Fargo in
progression.
between, it's like,
Right.
okay, they're still doing this thing where it's like it's still procedural. It's still like got like a brain in its head. It's so I think, and yeah, you're right. I mean, the Coens at this point would be in their 40s. I think PTA is like 37. I mean, this shit does play into it. Those movies are definitely in conversation with each other. I think in a kind of fucked up way, No Country for Old Men feels more user friendly, even with
Mm-hmm.
its ambiguous ending, because the ending of There Will Be Blood is crazy.
It is insane.
It's
Yeah.
fucking insane.
It's
That's
really
what I like
brutal.
about it.
Yeah, I
But it
like
is
it
another
too.
movie like when
Yeah.
it ends, you're like, what? Like what the
I mean,
fuck?
what a good punctuation mark, though. I'm
Yeah.
done.
I'm finished.
I'm finished. Sorry,
Yes.
that's I'm finished. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that this is like going back to like where we started. I do feel like if we just had these two movies,
Mhm.
'07 does feel like, oh fuck, like we're finally cooking 7 years
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
You know, like it finally feels like stuff is happening. And these aren't the only two movies, which we'll get to the other ones in a minute.
Right. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about with No Country is that there's no score. Because I was paying very close attention to that on my rewatch the other day because it was always something about this film that I found fucking brilliant. Like
I do too,
just
yeah.
like chef's kiss, like
Yeah.
so cool.
Right.
So I was paying very close attention. The only times outside of obviously the mariachi band that wakes him up
That's
in
diegetic, though. That's not a
Mexico,
score.
right? But I would say that's the only time we hear music proper.
I think so, yeah.
The only other times I thought I heard maybe like a droning note
hmm
was when Sugar is being put into the patrol car in the beginning.
Okay.
I thought I heard
Yeah.
a drone under that, and then the only other time was when Tommy Lee Jones was about to enter the crime scene
Yeah.
at the motel when he goes back at night and notices that the lock has been shot out.
Yeah.
So he knows that Chigurh has come back.
He's been there, yeah.
There's those sort of cuts back and forth between his face and the close up of the lock, and I thought I heard a
Yeah.
droning note under that. Those are the only times I
Yeah,
thought I heard
it's
something.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up because I wrote the same thing down and I did remember it. I did comment on it when because you only hear music over the end credits.
Right. Yeah.
And Carter Burwell, who might be the only composer they've ever worked with. I think he's
Mhm.
still working with them. He's a great composer. But I think that's such a strong choice. And
Yeah.
it's such an invisible sort of it's an invisible choice. And it's like because I think that it immerses you in a kind of reality that, you know,
Puts you in the place so firmly. And one
yeah.
of the things that I was, I listened to some interviews with the Coens and with the cast leading up to our conversation, just to hear a little bit about what they thought and how they felt about it.
Right.
And one of the things one of them said was that, and I love this little detail, is that the wind was used pretty heavily as sort of in place of a score or in
Yeah.
place of they use the wind as another device in lieu of score, and I found that really really fucking cool.
You know what I thought of? It might seem like a strange comparison, maybe not. You know the Hitchcock movie The Birds.
Of course, love that movie.
So that movie has no score,
Mm.
and he was working with Bernard Herrmann, who was top 2 or 3 composer of all
I call him
time.
Bernie. We're old pals.
What's that?
Bernie to me because we're old pals.
Yeah, you and Bernie go way back. But Bernard Herrmann was like he has a credit as like auditorial consultant or something. I
Mm.
don't have it in front of me. But what's interesting is that that's what I love about The Birds is that like coming off Psycho, which has like a top 5 movie score of all time.
So classic. Yep.
So incredible.
Mhm.
Like just anyway. And The Birds isn't Psycho, but it's so effective that it doesn't have a score. and obviously Herman kind of kind of signed off on that, and I think it's so effective here. And I thought of Hitchcock one other
Mm.
time when Llewellyn's in whatever city he's in, when he's really close to the border, and Chigurh comes to get him. Um, it reminded me of the climax of Rear Window, which is my
Oh,
favorite movie
yeah.
of all time.
Mhm,
Like he's looking at
mhm.
the lights in the hallway and
Yeah,
the feet at the under the
yeah.
door, and um, yeah, it's just so there's just so many sequences in this movie that are just so masterfully done. Another thing I noticed here, just to talk about, like sort of a,
Yeah.
I don't know if this was an intentional homage. There's two or three dissolves in this movie that reminded me
Mhm.
of Kubrick.
Mm.
And I don't think this movie's Kubrickian in any way except for this, but there's a line where Llewellyn comes back and he says something to Carla Jean, like when he's telling Carla Jean, like, we gotta leave, and he's just like, honey, what's done is done. And like as he's talking, it dissolves. And it just reminded me of really the last three Kubrick movies. It's all over The Shining, where like someone's
Mhm.
speaking and
Right.
they're
Yeah.
dissolving as they're
Yeah, yeah,
speaking.
yeah.
It's all over The Shining. It's in Full
Mhm.
Metal Jacket. It's in Eyes Wide Shut, at least in the early
Oh, yeah,
scenes.
for sure.
And it happens two, maybe three times in this movie. And just something. Did you twig that? It just was like
I
Kubrick.
did, but I didn't make that direct connection, but I
Uh-huh.
did the dissolves did stick out to me
Mhm.
because there's not a ton of them.
There's like
And they're
three,
and they're
maybe.
yeah, they're at very specific moments for very specific reasons. And
Yeah.
whenever that happens, you have to sort of pay attention to be like, okay, well, why did you make that choice there? No, that's a good observation. I mean, I definitely clocked the
Yeah.
dissolves, but I didn't draw that connection, but I see that
I
connection
could
for
be
sure.
reading way too much into it. I mean, the Coens are definitely their own men.
And one thing I think we haven't really talked about, we haven't really talked about Chigurh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We
Um, uh,
please.
and and I think another movie that I was drawing a strong parallel to and rewatching this again is The Seventh Seal.
Mhm.
Um, Chigurh as the embodiment of death and playing games with the people whom he targets,
Mhm.
the coin toss,
Right.
chess, whatever. Um, and one of the things I was thinking about, because I knew this before, and I was reminded again when I was listening to interviews with the cast that Javier Bardem was kind of not thrilled with the haircut.
Yeah.
But when he first walks up, like my first thought in seeing this again was like, well, there's someone who is pretending to be a real human boy.
Yeah.
Like the haircut doesn't work, the clothing doesn't work. None of it feels naturalistic to this character.
Yeah.
All of it feels like a facade and like a costume that he's putting on to, one of the running jokes that my wife and I constantly have is like, I'm a real human boy,
Yeah.
and he definitely, the first time you see him, you're like, this is not a real human boy. Something's not right about this guy.
Yeah.
And I love that they added that detail
Yeah.
because in the book, like McCormick doesn't really describe him physically. I think he uses really broad terms of like a man of medium height, of medium build,
Mhm.
and that's basically all you get.
Interesting.
Um, and uh, and so I love that the physicality that's brought to his character is this sort of facade. And I know that he is death and he is fate and destiny, um, and that he gets subverted by his own philosophies in the end, which I think is fantastic.
So my take is way less erudite and insightful. You know what I thought of?
Yeah.
I was thinking of the Terminator.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is that I'm not saying these guys were like paying homage to the Terminator, but it did remind me, because to me, Terminator is I'm talking about the very first
Sure.
Terminator.
Yeah.
You know, that movie would almost still work if there was no like sci-fi shit. If it was just like this big dude trying to kill this woman and how fucking scary that would be. So much of the tension in that first Terminator movie is like, Schwarzenegger's still like very young. He's like huge. He doesn't say a whole lot. And it's just like it's almost a horror movie. I mean, obviously it's a
Right.
sci-fi
Right.
movie. And I feel like I found myself thinking about that.
Yeah.
It's just funny because you're talking about the Seventh Seal. I'm talking about the Terminator. But I
Well,
do think there's a little bit of like, you know, Chigurh isn't human, going back to your original point. I think he tries to approximate a human form, and that haircut is such a miscalculation, and I could see why Bardem was sort of pissy about it, but I could see what the Coen just saying, like, no, 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 like, he gets this haircut because he thinks it's going to make him sort of pass, and if you saw that dude just walking
Right.
down the street, even without that gun in his
But I think
hand.
that's the interesting thing about that character, though, is he's not a machine.
Mm.
He is a human.
Mhm.
And as much as he doesn't want to be a human, he still is.
Yeah.
Like he still gets shot in the leg and has to deal with that.
Yeah.
And when he's confronted about his bullshit by Llewellyn's wife,
Carla Jean.
Carla Jean, thank you.
Yeah.
At the end, you see the the kink in his armor. Like
Right.
you're like you see him sort of short circuit there a little bit to be like, no, wait, what are you talking about? I am destiny, I am fate, I am death.
Yeah.
I'm not human, but he is.
Well,
So I
he's-
think that's where there's a little bit of a separation of that sort of like mindless, singular, robot versus this person who has built himself up as a mythological
Yeah.
creature, but is really just as prone to the type of random things that we all are.
Right.
The car running the red light.
Yeah, I think the Terminator thing, that's a murder to this point. I think
Yeah.
the scene you're bringing up where he fixes his leg, again, I thought about the Terminator like taking his eye out and fixing
Oh,
himself.
for
Again,
sure. Yeah.
I don't for one
Yeah.
second think the Coens were like, let's talk about the Terminator. But I
Well,
do
no, there's
think
a parallel there, obviously.
I think this
Yeah.
is a parallel that I
Yeah.
drew, and I know it's not the most sophisticated one. God forgive me, but I do think I love that you brought up that scene with Carla Jean because he says like, I made a promise to your husband that I
Right.
would kill you, and it reminded me of a line earlier in the movie where Woody Harrelson's like, "Do you have any idea how fucking crazy you
Yeah.
are?"
Yeah.
Like Woody Harrelson's so fucking good in this movie.
I know,
Yeah,
he's fantastic.
yeah.
I love him.
This is like another, another actor who I guess for like almost 10 years at this point, who like really became like this, it's just so crazy to think about. Like we grew up with like Woody as being Woody on Cheers.
Yeah.
And then he was in like White Man Can't Jump and Needs Proposal, which are like kind of fun movies, but then he does the Larry Flint movie.
Yeah.
And then it's like he gets nominated for an Oscar, and then he's like now, one of our most reliable character actors. He still does Hollywood stuff, but like it's just so funny
But
that
he's great in these types of roles. He's
exactly
perfect.
Yeah, such a small part, but he makes such he just like dines out on like he's in like 3 or 4 scenes in this movie,
and he's perfect.
Yeah, like his scenes with Brolin's great. His scenes with and the scene with Bardem, he's so afraid.
Yeah.
But you see him kind of processing it. I mean, we should definitely talk about Bardem because I feel like we talked.
Bardem,
This is. I mean, obviously he wins the Academy Award for this. What's interesting about this is like, there's about 6 months between this movie and The Dark Knight, and I feel like Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, who is his successor in the Academy Award, and obviously tragically died in between. Yeah. What do you think is Anton Chigurh's place in the pantheon of great screen villains? I mean, like, for me, and this is not a hot take at all, the greatest screen villain is Hans Gruber, Alan Rickman. I mean, that's not a fucking hot take.
No.
I'd say, not going to rank them, I'd say like Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
I'd say Heath Ledger
Darth
is the
Vader.
Joker. Who?
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader, yeah. I mean, it's like
they become such like clear iconography.
Yeah, like maybe Malkovich in the Line of Fire.
Yeah,
I don't know that he's like but I feel like that's like a really great. I always kind of like lump him a little bit in with Hans Gruber. Hans Gruber's definitely like above him, but I feel like that's like another villain where it's like a great hero, a great villain.
I once saw Alan Rickman at a restaurant downstairs from my apartment in Brooklyn.
Oh,
I was so stoked. I heard the voice out of I was sitting outside and I heard the voice coming out the front door and I was like, that can be no one else.
Yes, it's a very
There he
singular
is.
voice. But
R.I.P. brother.
but like yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I feel like his when this movie came out, it was like, okay, he's winning the Oscar. Like movie, the directors, that's all up for grabs. But like same thing with Daniel Day-Lewis. I mean, it was sort of like those two dudes were it was like, okay,
Head and shoulders above. Yeah.
right, they were going to win, and I really do feel like he's in that pantheon of great screen villains. I don't know, and I guess I'm asking this somewhat rhetorically.
Mm.
You know, again, 8 months later, Heath Ledger is the Joker, and Heath Ledger tragically dies, but he's also playing a character everybody knows. You know, I'm wondering if like the Bardem thing
Maybe got a little
bit,
lost in the shuffle.
got a little lost, got his wings clipped because
Yeah.
this other incredible performance, which I think if Heath Ledger had not tragically died, I like to think he would have still won the Oscar.
Yeah, I do.
I think there's evidence to show that he would have still won because he was just so good and it was a big movie.
Yeah, well, I wonder if it's like No Country holds such an interesting place in certain people's hearts.
Right.
I don't think in the broader public, people maybe think about or appreciate that movie in the same way that maybe you and I do,
Right.
or the listeners. But I love this film so much. It's one of the it's on fairly regular rotation for me. I would
Really?
say I probably watch it once every 18 months.
Wow.
Partly because of what we were talking about before, I feel like every decision that was made in this picture was so perfect for what it is. And the performances I find fascinating, and I feel like there's always something you can pick up on and appreciate on multiple watchings. And I think also like I really connect with the themes of this picture. So for me, yes, I would say absolutely Anton Chigurh lives in that pantheon of great screen villains. I don't know if in a broader sense he's there with the Hannibal Lecters and the Hans Grubers and those
movies
that
are more
have like
user friendly.
They're a little more user friendly. They're like bigger, more blockbustery in a lot of senses.
I think that's fair. But sticking with No Country, let me ask you this before we move on to the categories.
Yeah.
Where does it rank for you, without ranking all, however many, where does it rank for you? Is this your favorite Coen Brothers movie?
Oof. It might be my favorite Coen Brothers movie.
Okay.
It's easily top 3.
What are the top 3? Because I can give you 3 also.
It would be this, it would be Fargo, and for me, it would be Raising Arizona.
Okay.
I love Raising Arizona.
Okay.
I just love the cartoonish nature of that movie.
Right.
I'm a big Nick Cage guy. His performance is fantastic.
Early Nick Cage, too.
Early Nick Cage.
I
think it might be those 3. I don't know. Those are the ones I would say I return to the most.
My top 3, I could say without ranking, I'd say my top 3. I'd say this, Fargo, and number 1 for. I'm not saying this is 2 and 3, but this is in there, Fargo. But number 1 for me is The Big Lebowski.
I love Lebowski too. It's really hard for me. It's hard to pick your favorite baby.
Yeah, I know. Lebowski for me though is and Lebowski's just a complete comedy. There's nothing serious in it. But Lebowski for me is just like where they got the. You know what I would say? I'd say sticking with those 3 that like Lebowski is like their best pure comedy.
I was gonna say the voice is so singular.
And I think Fargo does a really incredible job of like blending comedy and sort of violence. And I think that this movie is the best version that they've done of like a serious dark movie where there's still humor. And because I think some things like The Man Who Wasn't There are just too serious and damp for me, even though I think formally it's very beautiful. Like visually it's very beautiful. And the Coens, the Coens are the kind of filmmakers where they just have like such a devoted following. I also really I'd rank it kind of lower than these other 3 or 4. Hudsucker Proxy, I think is just, if you ever want to read, anyone listening, I want everyone to read Roger Ebert's review of the Hudsucker Proxy. It is a 2-star review out of 4. But he did this thing that I thought was just maybe the best piece of film criticism I've ever read. He gave it 2 stars out of 4, but he wrote it as an angel and a devil on his shoulder. And he said...
Fighting over...
the angel said, like, this is incredibly these sets are beautiful. This was a
Yeah.
visual
Yeah.
splendor, and the Devil's saying like, yeah, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And I just thought like, wow, this is an incredible critic. Ebert's somebody I really admired
Yeah.
because he wasn't afraid to say,
I'm
I,
torn.
I'm torn,
Yeah.
and I think that that's such a rare thing now. And I think everybody should read that review because I think it's just a great piece of film criticism because he's just really being honest about you know what a fucking crazy thing it is to have to assess a movie, you know, uh,
Period.
period.
Yeah.
And I guess I like that movie more than he did, but yeah. So categorically denied. Before we get to Best Picture, let's see if No
Mm.
Country for Old Men was worthy of the other 3 Oscars that it won. So let's talk about Best Director. The Coens were up against Julian Schnabel for The Diving Bell and the Butterfly,
Mm.
Jason Reitman for Juno, Tony Gilroy for Michael Clayton, and Paul Thomas Anderson for There Will Be Blood. So, Alan, against those other directors of what you've seen, of what you remember,
Mhm.
do the Coens deserve their Best Director Oscars?
And I have seen all those, and I'm gonna say yes.
I'll say yes too.
Yeah.
I think I've seen all but one of these. Yeah, I do think. I mean, yeah, I think There Will Be Blood is really in conversation with this movie, and
Yeah,
Paul
it's
Thomas
so
Anderson did a great
close.
job.
It's so close.
It's a close call,
yeah.
and I thought Tony Gilroy did an incredible job with Michael Clayton, and you know,
I
I
liked Michael Clayton too. I'm a fan.
yeah,
But I
but
think for me it would be No Country, yes,
yeah,
winner, top.
mhm,
Right on the heels, There Will Be Blood,
yeah,
because I thought it was, like we talked about, what a great progression for PTA.
absolutely,
What a huge leap
yeah,
in terms of the cinematic language he's using.
yeah,
Amazing performances, amazing cinematography.
yeah.
Um,
It wins cinematography, not for nothing. Robert Elswit wins best
I mean,
cinematography.
so beautifully shot.
Yeah,
But I do feel like there was just something that felt more deft
yeah.
with No Country.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the Coens, yeah, I mean, I'm putting this in
Top of
their
their game. Top of
yeah,
their game.
I put this top 3, they're nominated for Fargo, but as I pointed out
Mhm.
earlier, because of the stupid rule, it would have only been
Right.
Joel getting it,
Right.
which
Right.
isn't right. And if they were both nominated for Fargo, I think they should have taken it that year. But we'll litigate that when we do
Right.
the English patient episode. So adapted screenplay, we've kind of talked
Mm.
about this, but adapted
Mhm.
screenplay, they beat Atonement, Away from Her, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, and There Will Be Blood. So of what you've seen, of what you remember, do you think they deserve their Academy Award for adapted screenplay?
Only seen 3 of the 5,
That's fine.
and only read the book that was adapted for.
Well, yeah, I was talking about the scripts
for,
themselves.
but yeah, I'm gonna say yeah. I agree. I agree with that decision.
I agree with it of these nominees. It's funny because I think watching the movie today, I think the dialogue. I just wrote down lines I liked. I read a couple of them.
Yeah.
I could. This whole podcast could be me reading lines from this movie that I like.
And again,
Doing
like we were saying before, it just feels so naturalistic. It
yeah.
just feels everything flows very nicely.
Yeah, every character has their own voice. I remember
Yeah.
hearing Brad Bird, who did the Incredibles movies, is a great writer in his own right,
Mhm.
talking about how the Coen brothers are a real lodestar for him because the smallest roles, everybody has their own voice. I think the Coen brothers,
Mhm. Mhm.
really in all their movies, whether I like them or not, are really just so deft at that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was leaning earlier today. I would have maybe said no, but I think the script is just really strong, and
Mhm.
yeah, I think I'll let that stand. So Javier Bardem wins Best Supporting Actor. He
Mhm.
beats Casey Affleck for the assassination of Jesse James by the
Mhm.
coward Robert Ford. Deep breath.
Which I really
He
liked.
beats Philip Seymour Hoffman for Charlie Wilson's War. Hal Holbrook for Into the Wild, and Tom Wilkinson from Michael Clayton. Real tough category there.
That's really tight.
Yeah.
Because I really liked Casey Affleck, and I
Mhm.
really, as I mentioned before, really liked the assassination of Jesse James.
Yeah, beautiful movie.
Beautiful movie.
Also shot by Roger Deakins, who shot
Oh,
that movie.
I didn't realize that.
And I believe he's nominated for an Academy Award for both these movies.
Oh wow.
He gets
Okay.
2 nominations. I talked about in one of the episodes this vote splitting, which I think is kind of bullshit. But
Yeah, yeah,
but yes, I think Roger Deakins was nominated for both these movies against
yeah.
himself, but wins for
Man,
neither.
I gotta say I'm like on the fence there.
You
As
think?
much as I love Javier Bardem and I love the character of Anton Chigurh, like it would be between Javier and Tom Wilkinson for me.
Yeah, I haven't seen Hal Holbrook, who I think is a great actor, and I'm sure he's great in this. Yeah, I would. This is a tough one because I think Bardem is like iconic in this movie. I think he's really great.
Yeah.
I think Affleck is terrific. I think Philip Seymour Hoffman is terrific. I think Tom Wilkinson's really incredible, and Michael Clayton. So,
I just
uh,
think Charlie Wilson's wore that role for Philip Seymour Hoffman as much as he like fucking slays everything he's in.
yeah,
It's just not as strong a role.
yeah. If we're
You know?
splitting hairs,
We're splitting hairs. That's where I would.
I
draw
agree. I think Philip Seymour Hoffman, yeah, he's already won for Capote.
Mhm.
I think as a role, I think Affleck and Wilkinson, those characters are incredibly well written and so central to. Yeah, I might give it to Bardem by a nose, but if it had gone to Affleck or Wilkinson, I'd be
I
like
wouldn't
fucking
be
throw a
upset.
dart.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this is one of those things where we really just have to celebrate this year. The
Yeah.
fact that like this is all. I mean, I feel like Best Supporting Actor is always a very strong category because we're still not writing great roles for women, and so Best Supporting Actress, there may be like 5 great actresses in there, but the
Yeah.
roles could be there's always like
Right.
1 or 2 that are like just housewives,
Right.
and that's not to denigrate the actresses who are playing those roles. But I feel like Best Supporting Actor is always just like the most fun. Even if you look at a list of like the winners, it's like Joe Pesci and Sean Connery and like
right.
Nicholson, and it's always just like a fun, and Heath Ledger.
Right.
It's like kind of like the fun, cool Oscar. So yeah, I would give it to Bardem because I don't think he's really better in any other movie than he is in this. And I think he's good in a lot of other movies.
Well, and if you're also like putting his villain up against other great Hollywood villains,
Yeah,
it's a really good villain.
It's a really good villain.
It's a really good villain.
He's
The
really
villains
distinct.
are like really meaty and wonderful roles.
Right. Like so much of this movie is like
It's
I'm
hard
afraid
to
of
even
this dude.
consider like Casey Affleck for Best Supporting since he was kind of the lead.
Well, category fraud is something that comes up a lot. I mean,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
comes up a lot. Where they'll take. I mean, look, a lot
Give
of
it to
people.
the top billed guy, I guess, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, like Brad Pitt
Yeah.
but Brad Pitt pound for pound is probably not in as much of the movie as
No,
Affleck is.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
really
Kier-
about Affleck's character anyway.
Right. Well, Kieran Culkin is in 62% of A Real Pain,
Right.
and they put him in Best Supporting Actor because he had a better chance of winning that
Right.
than.
yeah.
And Zoe
Yeah.
Saldana, kind of the same thing in
Yeah.
Emilia Perez.
Politics.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of called category fraud. I don't fault the actors for it, but yeah, I mean Casey Affleck should be in Best Actor,
Yeah.
and but they probably thought he had a better chance in this role in this category.
I've been behind the scenes on that and been the person saying these are the people we should put in these categories
Right.
for Emmys.
Yeah,
So
I
I
mean
get it. I get it.
it's
I
the
get it.
politics, and
Yeah.
it's never really the actor's fault.
Yeah.
So all right, let's call it, friendo.
All right.
Now it's time to test our hindsight with a verdict.
Yes.
Against Atonement, Juno,
Uh-huh.
Michael Clayton, and There'll Be Blood. Was No Country for Old Men the best movie nominated this year?
Yes.
Um,
Oh.
I'm gonna say I gotta go with my heart. I think Michael Clayton
Wow.
was just a little bit better. I mean,
Interesting.
yeah, you know what's funny? I was watching
Okay.
No Country today, and I hadn't seen it. I won't put it. I know I haven't seen it since I lived in this house. So that puts it
Yeah.
at 5 years easy.
Okay.
That puts it COVID easy. So I haven't seen it in this decade for no reason. It's just I haven't watched
Yeah.
it. And then the summer that just passed, I bought the 4K Criterion Blu-ray, which I highly recommend. Criterion.
Really? Okay. Tell me.
Okay, so Michael Clayton.
Defend your choice.
So Michael Clayton. So watching No Country for Old Men today, I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. this might be the best movie of 2007. And when I got to the end, which I agree with you that I think the ending is deliberate and I think it's profound, but to me, Michael Clayton is, you know, has an ending that I was talking about ambiguity versus what something.
I was about to say, I feel like there's some
There's
ambiguity
ambiguity as
with
far as like where Michael
Clayton
Clayton is at the end of that movie,
yeah.
but not what happens.
Fair.
Michael Clayton
fair.
is satisfying is that you see him take down the villain.
Right.
I think that and I hate to be such a Hollywood fucking asshole about this, but I think Michael Clayton is satisfying in that Michael Clayton solves, he takes down the villain, which is Tilda Swinton in this case, who not incidentally wins the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress.
Right.
I think she's the villain of that movie, even though she's a neurotic,
She's fantastic
scared.
in that,
Fantastic. I mean,
she's just fantastic.
She's just fantastic. I mean, but it's like, it's, I'm a huge fan of Tony Gilroy, and I think that it's Tony Gilroy just operating at the top of his game. And again, if Michael Clayton had won Best Picture, and Michael Clayton was not as successful as There Will Be Blood or No Country for Old Men, it was kind of like LA Confidential 10 years earlier, where it was just such a well-reviewed movie that it got a bunch of Oscar nominations and won actually the same Academy Award. It won Best Supporting Actress. So everybody liked this movie, but it doesn't have the pop cultural significance of No Country or There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
But I do think it's that third brother in there of just a movie that's got morally ambiguous characters where every character has their own voice. It couldn't be a bigger world apart because it's New York City.
Right.
It's like one percenters. I think it's Clooney's best performance.
I've always loved Clooney in that.
Yeah, and I think it's a movie that, like, when I saw the trailer, I'm like, oh, is this like a Grisham style thriller? It looked very disposable. The titles seemed kind of uninspired, but
it was a placeholder.
it just seemed like okay. And then like when it came out, I was reading some like interesting reviews, and when I saw it, I liked it and kind of like forgot about it. But I've returned to it more than these other movies, and I mean, for all the bitching I've done on this podcast about how the 2000s were so subpar, it's really kind of incredible to have No Country, There Will Be Blood, and Michael Clayton in the same year, all of which won at least one Oscar.
Right.
I have not seen Atonement, and Juno's something I didn't respond to. I think there's things in Juno that I did like.
Sure.
I just think that of the three,
it didn't resonate with me in the same way.
It didn't resonate with me in the same way, but I'll go one step further. Of the movies that Jason Reitman's made with Diablo Cody, Juno's the least of them. I think that Tully and Young Adult are much stronger.
Yeah, Young Adult's brilliant.
Yeah, and so I just think that it's like there's a better version. It's like there's that collaboration bore more fruit later on.
Right.
And I think Reitman made a much better movie just 2 years later, Up in the Air with Clooney.
Yeah, I loved Up in the Air.
Yeah, and so I think that like he had better work ahead of him. But yeah, I think Michael Clayton, it's a closer call than I would have thought even like waking up this morning. But I mean, these are just great fucking movies, and really, really heartening. Like I said,
like you said before, throw a dart, you're gonna hit something great.
But to me, Michael Clayton, I think what I hang my hat on, just to kind of bring this home, is the fact that Michael Clayton resolves the villain is taken down, and then we're left with a character of What I Do Now. I think No Country, the villain escapes, which I think works. That's the right decision. I just like the idea. But all three of these movies, No Country, There Will Be Blood, and Michael Clayton, do end on this note of ambiguity in different shades. Whether it's what happens, what does it mean for the main character? I mean, I think all three of the main characters in these movies, it's like, now what? I mean, DDL fucking kills a guy. Is he get away with it?
Right.
You can see him getting away with it. You can see him going to jail.
Right.
Tommy Lee Jones is definitely, he's not in any mortal danger, but
he's a lost soul.
He's a lost soul, and even his wife is kind of like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
And Michael Clayton, I mean, the last shot of Michael Clayton is Clooney sitting in a cab,
right,
the camera on him for like a really long time as the credits are going. And it's like, yeah, he's sort of solved this case, but he's probably gonna lose his job. I mean,
Right.
he's probably gonna get fired by Sidney Pollack, and it's
Right.
like, he hasn't won anything.
Yeah, and he's processing that.
Right, and you see that it's very much
Yeah.
like and it's very much like the end of The Graduate. I don't think that's a mistake or a
No, I think
reach.
that's probably
Very
a very deliberate echo.
because I heard an interview recently with Gilroy, I forgot where he said like he didn't know what the ending was. Meaning like he didn't know what the last shot of the movie was. I think he knew how it was going to end and resolve. And I also just think that like, we talked a lot about how there's no showdown between Tommy Lee Jones and
Right.
Javier Bardem. The showdown between Clooney and Tilda Swinton is just masterful.
Yeah.
And it's not heroic. It's just so, you know, that scene is just fantastic. So yeah. So
I think the thing that you like about Michael Clayton and the thing that I like about No Country are not necessarily diametrically opposed, but
yeah.
I think makes sense for who we are, right? Like
Yeah.
like I really respond to the messiness of life and the messiness in terms of how the stories of our three main characters in No Country conclude.
Right.
Because to me that's real. That's more like my experience of life.
Right.
And you as such a student of film and Hollywood, and like it makes sense that you gravitate more towards something that has a little bit more of conflict resolution,
Yeah.
but still, like you said, still has that little hint of ambiguity. Whereas
Yeah.
I lean more into the chaos.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think that's fair.
Which I think makes total sense to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now it's time for the appeal. Was No Country for Old Men the best movie of the year, period? Nominated or not?
I mean, I looked like we said earlier, I did look at the wiki of everything that was released that year.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of really fun movies that year. Like you touched on a couple that I really loved that I didn't put on my list, but Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
And the Andy Samberg.
Hot Rod.
Hot Rod.
Yeah.
I fucking love Hot Rod.
Hot Rod's terrific.
Like one of my favorite comedies. It's so good.
And not really kind of forgotten.
Totally forgotten.
It's kind of a Lonely
me,
Island movie, and it didn't make a lot of money, but it's like one of those movies that was destined to be sort of discovered later.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that happened, but
I don't know if it's happened. And if it hasn't happened, if you haven't seen it, watch Hot Rod.
Yeah.
It's delightful.
Yeah, I agree.
And honestly, like double feature it with Popstar.
Popstar's a great movie.
Is really fun.
Both those movies are terrific.
And these are movies that I've been telling my wife about. She hasn't seen them yet. I'm like, oh my God, we are gonna double feature these soon.
Which would be less time than some of these other movies. I think both those movies are 80 minutes. So you're still talking less than 3 hours altogether.
Yeah. But like we were talking about before, I love American Gangster.
Yeah.
I love Zodiac.
Yeah.
I love Sunshine is one of my favorite sci-fi movies of all time. Love Danny Boyle, huge Danny Boyle guy. So when I did my short list of my favorite movies of that year, and I look at them all together, and I think about what is the one I return to the most on this list, the one I return to the most is No Country.
Awesome. I love that.
It really is. Like,
no, that's great.
As much as I do rewatch, and I do rewatch a lot of these movies.
Yeah.
On the reg.
Yeah.
No Country is the one I go to the most.
I think that's great. I think you're the first guest. You are definitely the first guest who's picked the Best Picture winner to win Best Picture and to be the best movie of the year. And I love that. Because I didn't think, I got a lot of movies ahead of me.
Yeah.
But I didn't imagine that happening before we got to The fucking Godfather. Like The Godfather is going to be the most boring episode of this podcast.
Yeah.
Because
it's gonna be just like yes, yes,
Yes,
yes,
yes,
yes,
yes.
yes,
Maybe
yes, yes.
Casablanca and Godfather 2 and, like,
Right,
maybe
right.
one other and that's it. But, like, it's just gonna be like a shitball episode
Yeah.
of hindsighting because it's just
Right.
antithetical to what this show is. But, no, I love that. I think that that's great. I think that, you know the point of this show, I said in my preview episode, it isn't to bash these movies that have won.
Sure.
It's really just to sort of talk about has time rendered a different verdict and to sort of celebrate other movies. I think this is
Yeah.
like this year is like the perfect thing. It's kind of like 1974 where it's like Godfather 2 wins, but it beats Chinatown.
I know.
And it's like,
Yeah.
holy shit. How do you choose between those two?
Yeah.
I mean, if I had that ballot, it'd be 1975. I would still be like, I mean, there's no amount of hair splitting, and the conversation's also on that ballot,
Yeah.
and so
Oh
it's
my
like
God. Yeah.
I think what it should be is like we said, like throw a dart. It should be optimally, you know, every movie is great and what wins is kind of incidental because like the Oscars
Right.
is like an innately silly thing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
and I want to make that clear is like I don't, you know, I, it's like when a movie I love wins, then I'll say, "Hey, it won best picture." But when a movie I don't like wins, I'll dismiss it. And I
Yeah.
think the Oscars
Yeah.
are different every year. Just like the Super Bowl, the World Series is different every year. It's like, if there are teams playing that you think are great, then they're great. If there are teams you think suck, that sort of snuck through. So it really does. I mean, there are trends in the Oscars. Obviously, Harvey
Sure.
Weinstein on Miramax is a fucking trend.
Yes.
And I won't mention that asshole's name too much, but there was a trend.
There was. Yeah. There was a period of time.
There was a period of
Yeah.
time, and we're going to talk about trends on the life of this show. There's trends of things that won, whether the movies are good or they're bad. So yeah, I love that you're upholding No Country. I will uphold Michael Clayton as the best movie of the year
Nice.
for all
Excellent.
the reasons
Yeah.
I've already
Yeah.
said. I think Tony Gilroy is one of our great writers.
I agree.
And he's been on TV now, and TV's better for it. I think movies are worse for it.
Yeah.
And I also like his brother Dan. And yeah, so I'm not going to go into to Michael Clayton again, but I think it's great that the two movies that we're both picking as the best, your movie won, my movie was nominated. That's all you can ask.
Yeah.
That like,
Yeah.
and There Will Be Blood won 2 Oscars, was in the conversation. I think There Will Be Blood, might win sort of like a Film Geeks poll, but again, I think that's great that like all 3 of these movies won something, were in the conversation. And again, like we said a little while ago, if There Will Be Blood had won, I'd be okay.
Well,
And
look, as flawed as the award system is,
yeah,
and speaking as someone who has one of these things at home, not an Oscar, but
you have an Emmy.
an award.
What did you win it for? People might not know.
I won it for directing, specifically for outstanding title sequence for the Casa Grandes, which was a series on Nickelodeon.
Cool.
I co-directed it with my coworker Miguel Puga, and our art director Miguel Gonzalez, and our color supervisor Hallie Lal. So we all received Emmys for this. And I've always been the type of person who doesn't really care about awards. I'm more into the process. I'm a process guy.
Right.
But I have this thing on my bar at home, and every now and then I have this moment of feeling like, oh, that's really cool that someone recognized this thing that we did in this way. I don't put a lot of cachet into that award,
Right.
meaning a whole lot or opening doors for me or whatever.
Mhm.
But it is cool to get recognized by your peers.
Yeah.
So when films like this and performances and scripts like these get recognized, there's something nice and validating about it, even with all the flaws in the system.
Yeah.
There's still something nice about it.
Yeah, and I talked about this in other episodes. Currently, I'm very encouraged about the direction of the Academy because it's gotten younger and it's gotten more international.
Right.
And I think we're seeing, You
Which
know,
I love seeing more international films
yeah,
being part of the conversation
yeah.
because there's a lot more out there than just what happens in this town.
I
You know?
agree,
Yeah.
and I think I'm very encouraged, even as recently as this year, about the direction the Academy's in.
Mm.
So yeah, I think there's sunny days ahead, and that's not a sentence I thought I'd say in 2025.
He did click his heels when he said it, just for the listeners out there. He hopped up out of his chair, clicked his heels. He's got an umbrella for some reason. I don't know what's happening.
I don't know either. All right, Alan. Our next category is Spotlight, where we spotlight something from any movie
Ah.
from 2007, a performance, cinematography,
Mhm.
score, a stunt sequence, or whatever aspect of any movie that popped for us that we felt should have been nominated this year, whether we like the movie or not. So anything from any movie in 2007. It could be from a movie we already discussed or a movie we haven't discussed yet. Just some little thing that you thought should have been nominated in any category, any movie from this year. What do you got?
Oof. I think I'm gonna go back to Sunshine,
Okay.
my favorite sci-fi of the year. Um, I thought the score was really good for that movie.
Okay.
Um, and I thought the VFX were really great for that movie.
Okay. Great.
Um, Great sci-fi movie. If you haven't seen Sunshine,
Mhm.
just go for it. Great movie.
So I'm gonna spotlight two whole movies. A funny thing happened in 2007 that obviously I didn't know about in 2007. So 2007, without me realizing it, marked the end of two sterling careers
Mm.
for directors, both of which end on a high note. So the first is Sidney Lumet, who made his last movie, which was called Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
Great movie.
It's exactly 50 years after 12 Angry Men, which was his first movie. And he's 83 years old, and he makes a movie that's just raw and vibrant. And if you didn't know, you would feel the guy making this was in his late 20s or early 30s. And what's interesting is that I think we touched on this last week with Mike Prince. Um, Lumet shoots this digitally. And I think for a guy who's 83, who literally started in fucking Playhouse 90, if he had said, I want to shoot on film, he would have been completely excused. Nobody would have turned their nose up and said, okay, the guy's 83. But I think the fact that he was willing to shoot digitally, that he was willing to adapt on his last movie, I don't think he knew it was his last movie, I thought just spoke very highly of him. And I just love that he's sort of able to adapt to the times. And yeah, it's like his best movies. It's New York. It's raw. It's incredible performances. Um, you know, it's just a great movie that I can't recommend highly enough. Also, that another great director who finished his career that year, unbeknownst to all of us, was Mike Nichols. And Mike Nichols' career is probably less consistent and more erratic than Lumet's. I mean, he's made some great movies and some movies that really don't work and is very streaky. But uh, when he made Charlie Wilson's War, he had an Aaron Sorkin script, and it's it was Sorkin's first script since The American President
Mm.
because he'd done West Wing, and this is just like a great. This is what Nichols does so well because he has great material and he just stages it so incredibly well. And this is a great example of Tom Hanks stretching himself. He's playing a guy who's, a womanizer and a heavy drinker, but because it's Tom Hanks, you know that this character has an innate decency that kind of carries you through it. Um, what both these movies have in common is Philip Seymour Hoffman, and 2007 is like another career year from he's nominated for Charlie Wilson's War. Um, and if you look at Charlie Wilson's War and Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, my mark of a great actor is like if you just take any two random performances of theirs and how different they are, and this is just another great example. And Philip Seymour Hoffman tragically dies 7 years later, way too young, and we now talk about him as one of our very best actors. I mentioned him last week when I spotlighted the opening of Mission Impossible 3 and how I feel like it's the last time Cruise is sparring with a great actor, and how I thought Hoffman lifted Cruise up in that scene. And
Mhm.
so it's just kind of crazy. I didn't even think about that. To like, oh, Philip Seymour Hoffman's in both these movies, and he's nearer the end of his career than we could have known. And the fact that Lumet and Mike Nichols both, chose him to be in their movies, just speaks so highly of him. I don't have to convince anybody that Philip Seymour Hoffman is one of our great actors,
Yeah.
but it was a connection I didn't make until I was
Yeah,
like
no,
writing
that's
this out.
interesting. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's both these dudes' last movies have the best actor of that generation.
Yeah.
and nobody could have known.
And like fantastic directors. Lumet, I didn't realize that 12 Angry Men was his first picture. What a
Yeah.
what a jump out the gate, my man.
And he's nominated for Best Director.
Love Lumet. And Nichols too. Love them both. And both what different roles for Hoffman too. Like
Yeah. I mean, it's really that's just what I go by. It's like if you just look at two performances and how different they are. It's really one of the things you don't have to think about that much. So Alan, where can people find you? What do you have coming up? Anything you want to promote?
So, I'm at a, the industry is at a bit of a crossroads. I find myself at a little bit of a crossroads myself in terms of my career. I don't know where it will take me next.
Yeah.
But looking forward to the journey. See what's on the horizon. I am also a musician. I have put out a bunch of albums with a bunch of different bands over the years, but currently I'm just doing my own thing for myself as sort of my own personal art. My band name is also related to filmmaking. 16 by 9 is the name of my current recording project. You can search it as the number 16:9. You can find me on all of the streaming platforms. I'm currently writing and recording a new album and enjoying that.
Okay, you can find me at Instagram and Letterboxd, both Edward Clow, and you can find me on Vimeo. You can see some short films I've done on there. Next episode, Shea Doswell and I discuss the best picture of 2008, Slumdog Millionaire. Till then, looking forward to looking back.